Connecting to cloud server. Yep.
Yeah, it's recording. Yeah.
And I'll. Okay, here we go. And I'll give a good welcome to everyone. Hi, everybody. My name is Vivek Chawla. I am the co-leader with Tyler of the San Diego Salesforce Developer Group. Very, very excited for this TKS, this Technical Knowledge Share meetup today, because we've got Will O'Brien from CodeScan. He's going to talk to us about static code analysis and kind of how that fits into the magical world of DevOps. DevOps is a topic, if you're not familiar with it, kind of the shortening of development operations or developer operations or developer who does operations, or it could stand for developer who pulls all their hair out. DevOps can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And one thing that is always true is that in a modern software development environment, especially a modern agile software development environment, DevOps is something that if you're not thinking about it, you are essentially going to be doing manual work at various times, and that manual work may is its own DevOps in a way, right? So if you're not thinking about it, it's thinking about you. And in order to have a really high performance agile development team, some investment in DevOps is just critical, and that's true of any software platform, and Salesforce included. In fact, a lot of the advancements recently in the developer experience over the last few years with Salesforce DX, a lot of that in part has been carried out to make DevOps with Salesforce easier and more like DevOps with other platforms. So that's kind of a, just to set the stage. We're definitely happy to have Will here to tell us more about it. And what we'll do is if you all, as questions come to you during Will's presentation, go ahead and add them to the chat. I'll curate those, and if it seems like a good idea to break in and interrupt Will, then we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll cover all the questions at the end, and hopefully we'll have a good conversation following Will's presentation. I think with that, Will, let's give you as much time as possible with this excellent content. So I'll stay quiet and pass it to you.
No worries. Thank you very much. Well, hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Will O'Brien. I'm the Customer Success Director for CodeScan. CodeScan, as Vivek mentioned, is a code quality tool, a static analysis tool specifically for Salesforce. And our goal is to really focus on the standardization of code quality and security. And like Vivek said, automating that in the DevOps process, because the manual reviews do take a lot of time, and saving that time can save you a lot of money, and also just a lot of heartbreak if it's your customers who are finding those bugs. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview about CodeScan, some of the development challenges that we as a team are trying to help people overcome, a bit on our best practices, the best practices to help you overcome those, and I'll show you how we do that and how we integrate static analysis, at least at CodeScan, into a pipeline. As Vivek said, we can stop at any time for questions. Please yell out if you have any, because I think making this a collaborative kind of chat rather than me talking about CodeScan for the next half hour is probably going to be a lot more interesting. So just let me know. But so here at CodeScan, as I mentioned, our vision is to just empower developers to write better code, to be just faster and cleaner and more efficient, and really have confidence in your releases and the code you're pushing downstream. So our mission and how we do that is by applying the code standardization and enforcing that quality, making that a common practice amongst your dev team. Once that standardization is in place, that's where you really find the development moves quicker. So we're based here in San Diego. We were founded in 2014 back in Australia, in Brisbane. As you can tell, I don't have a normal Californian accent. We've built the tool a lot since then, and it's expanded from just a self-hosted platform and a plugin to Sonar Cube onto a cloud platform, which we're very proud of. We have about 350 rules now, covering Apex, Visual Force, your Lightning web components, the Aura Lightning, as well as some Salesforce metadata, which we're expanding a lot on, allowing you to check a lot of the declarative bits and pieces. We have over 150 customers and very diverse verticals, a lot of health, a lot of financial customers, all the way to SIs and also government, state and federal around the world. So like I mentioned, we're built exclusively for the Salesforce ecosystem, which really allows us to focus on Salesforce developers, how Salesforce is constantly expanding and keep up with that need and that very unique DevOps pipeline and the way that people need to do things. So the main challenges around Salesforce development, and really any development, is maintaining the speed from as fast as you can produce the code through your review process and onwards. So we find that main challenge comes with the review process. Now, a lot of people still use manual review processes, and that can really be where the time is taken, depending on where that process is in your pipeline. So for example, here in this very simple diagram here, we can see the development and testing QA loop. Now, when we're in development, developers push into your integration branch or your SIT, and you're starting to build those new features. When it gets pushed down to testing or QA, and they find a problem with it, if they have to push it all the way back, it's putting time off new features or more on those features that they're developing. It's slowing you down, and it's involving a lot of people. So on the right here, where we see the design, development, testing, staging, etc., the more people that we involve in that process, in the review process, is the more time and money it's going to take to get that code out. So what we want to do is push that visibility and that review process left. And you might have heard that that term before. Now, if you haven't, a shift left is a shift towards the development of your project. Excuse me. So a shift left is giving more power to the developers and more visibility at that development stage to start addressing these issues before they go downstream and before they become issues to your testing and QA, or issues being found in staging, or heaven forbid, by a customer. We've had some customers that have come to us after nightmare stories of, someone's production or getting shut down by one line of code, which is just gives them a problem, throws a governor limit exception and shuts someone down that it shouldn't have, etc. So having that confidence as the code goes further down and enforcing those standards is really what we're trying to do, and is really where static analysis becomes very important in the pipeline. So the reasons why these issues would be created and travel down the pipeline towards the customers is one, a lack of defined development standards. So just people not seeing what they're actually pushing out, or not having the standards defined for them and clearly. People building on top of legacy implementations. So we see a lot of people coming in with code that's been built for 6 years. You have a mix of Aura components, you old pages, you have a lot of Apex in there, some of which is being used, some maybe not. Methods that aren't being used, bits, places, just a lot of hands touching the same code and really creating quite a confusing environment to step into as a developer. And three, the lack of visibility on those issues. So either a review team, that is giving back the issues they think need to be fixed by the developers, keeping things to themselves, or just no review team, a developer being trusted to check their own work, and no one's trying to create issues, but sometimes it's just unavoidable. There are best practices we all try and follow, but sometimes human eyes can't catch everything. And of course, there's a seamless code review process. So either a static analysis tool or a checkmark scans happening regularly to really make sure that all the code that's being developed is being checked. So the way that we provide this service at CodeScan is having these integrations with a couple of different places. One, either running a server on premise, which can be a really or in the cloud, sorry, which can be a real team effort when it comes to code review. And I'll show you that in a second. Having a central place for those reviews and that visibility is really useful as the code progresses through the development. The furthest shift left, of course, being a plugin for your editor. So VS Code or the new cloud IDE that Salesforce is coming out with, the two things that we really like, and we've provided these plugins to allow you, the developer, to see that those problems as soon as they're created, fix them so they're not pushed downstream. Now, the platform itself and where you integrate that into your process is very different for a lot of different customers. Now, in the role that I'm in at CodeScan, luckily I can stay away from numbers and gross stuff like that. I just get to play with toys and dev pipelines all day. So I get to sit with the customer, figure out how they're developing, the tools they're using already, and make sure that we can slot static analysis step into that seamlessly, but also provide visibility on the right issues in the right place. So the importance of it being in the right place is definitely a noise to signal ratio. Now, far left, where the development is being done, noise can be a real problem. If a developer is finding that, well, say a static analysis tool is brought on, it's given to the developer, hey, here's another way I'm going to track the way you work every day, and here's how another way I'm watching you, right? It's not a very exciting premise for a developer who has pride in their work and is keen to develop quickly. So creating a set of rules that you know are relevant to your standards and are relevant to the code that you're actually producing is very important to getting a functioning automated review process. And that's what we try and do. So what I'm going to show you is in CodeScan today, because I'm an expert in just CodeScan, but really this is about static analysis, and it's about defining the code standards. It's about gaining that visibility before it goes to QA and review, and it's about ways to enforce that on the new development. So let me jump over to CodeScan Cloud, and I will start showing. But let me just have a look in here. So Vivek, you asked a great question in the chat there. What are some of the headwinds a development team might face when first attempting to implement regular code scanning in their DevOps pipeline? Good question. So one that I find is the type of DevOps pipeline that people are running. So we because with Salesforce DevOps, it's never worked quite like like other language development. With Java, etc. You have testing. You can test in a pipeline. Without something like SFDX, you don't need a specific platform. You've got a lot of well-tested and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But sometimes with Salesforce, it kind of feels like you do, especially before we had tools like Capado and GearSet and Flowsum, etc., to help those releases. But the headwinds are really finding the best place to implement that helps developers, not hinder them, to get the best feedback. And that comes with its own challenge, which is the adoption of developers having to pay attention to something. So making it a collaborative process, as I'll show you in a second, is a really interesting tool to get everyone thinking about standardization and thinking about code in the same way to maintain that speed. Was there any other questions actually at this point?
No, but I just want to comment on that answer. That makes a lot of sense to me, especially the idea of making it collaborative, because in my experience working with Salesforce partners who are either starting to implement a kind of more structured, rigorous DevOps, or who are considering it, typically a DevOps implementation is it's a project that's spearheaded by a small number of people, and so getting that buy-in from developers does seem to be really important, critical actually. And I love your idea of making it collaborative, and kind of it's almost like showing the developers the benefit of the new ceremonies or tools or whatever that DevOps environment is going to be like. Trying to find a way to give them access to the benefits in a collaborative way first seems to be a good way to reduce those headwinds. So thanks for that.
No problem. Yeah, and definitely sharing that ROI and sharing the progress that you're making makes it feel more like a group effort, not just someone with the whip at the top of the chain waiting on your pull request. I've found there's definitely two types of developers when it comes to especially that first bit, in the IDE and getting all that feedback on your code. I remember being on a call with two guys, and one guy was saying, it's like, oh, do you think this will annoy developers seeing their code criticized like this? And the other guy said, I want to beat it. I want to make it completely clean. I want to beat this game.
I like it.
Yeah. It almost made me start developing a point system for the idea, but that would have been fun.
No, that's not a bad idea. Gamifying code review. That's kind of interesting.
It's worked with everything else.
I think there's a patent there somewhere.
Oh yeah. Patent pending.
It's already out there. There's scoring systems.
Oh yeah. We got to integrate. Oh. 1 second. Okay, let me go over to CodeScan here. So I'm going to show you a bit about how we integrate into GitHub today, and just where the information is and how we're producing that and how we're producing relevant information in CodeScan. So this is CodeScan Cloud that we're looking at. And each of these rectangles here are a different code repository. So we can pull straight from GitHub, straight from Salesforce itself, straight from Bitbucket as well as of course integrating with Capado and AutoRabbit and the big guys there, and of course custom pipelines, GitLab, etc. And really SFDX has been a big part in how we do it in those custom pipelines, especially through GitLab, and is a lot of people have had a lot of success with that. But the three projects I've got here are with some inbuilt integrations that we've built to make static code analysis a much more easy thing to integrate into your process. So for example, if you create a Salesforce project directly in CodeScan, what it's going to do is it's going to scan, say, your production once a day, as well as any sandboxes you add, and allow you to see the difference in those sandboxes to your production. So just tracking new issues. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second because that's part of the relevance conversation. For GitHub and Bitbucket, what we're doing is the same thing, except triggered on those pushes every time the code is updated and those pull requests as well. But I'll show you a bit more about the metrics first. So what we're able to see from this and what should be available to everyone with static analysis is some high level metrics. So a lot of people, when they're bringing in static analysis, one of the first things some people ask is like, oh, how do I get a CSV output? How do I get this and this? It's like CSV outputs are good. If you want to do, you want to do some more operations on them, you want to really dig down and find some bits and pieces that we don't have in the tool. But first, let's have a look at the high level metrics. So we can get a lot from them, especially once you've customized it to the standards and defined those standards. So clicking in to this project here, we can see a few, a lot of colors and numbers, and I'll explain them now. So in the tool here, we've got a separation between bugs. So these are functional issues or things that could cause some unexpected output, as well as very Salesforce specific things like governor limit exceptions, etc. Excuse me. We've got vulnerabilities, which of course are security issues, a lot of field level security issues, some front end stuff as well, cross-site scripting, etc. And then down here we have code smells, and code smells are code quality issues. So they are issues that could help in the styling of the code. For example, naming conventions, spacing conventions, bracket conventions, that kind of thing, as well as things that can be confusing to the end user. For example, having a ternary condition, sorry, not the end user, to a developer stepping into the class. For example, a ternary with a ternary condition with a negative in it. If you're making a ternary condition with a negative on it, it's a bit hard to read. It even goes down to things like that. So what it's trying to do with the code smells is create an easily readable standard for your code as well. Now, these high level metrics that I mentioned before, these E's here. Now, an E in CodeScan means there is a blocker in your code. There is a blocker issue. And a blocker in CodeScan is the worst severity. So what these ratings are giving us is a high level view at the worst possible thing that's happening in our code. And at the moment, if we click in, we can see we've got a lot of blockers here. Let me see. Let's go to the list here. So we can click in and see a list of issues. Go by the blockers. We got some parsing errors. lots of parsing errors. Maybe I should have checked this before. If we go down to the critical, we've got a couple more JavaScript issues here, and major, minor, etc. So we've got the ability to check all these different severities, and they'll supply different outputs when it comes to the rating. For example, an A would be a completely clean slate. B would be a minor issue. C would be a major. D would be a critical, etc. Now, when you first scan a large legacy code base, these are always going to be a bit of a shock, but we'll talk about relevancy in a second. So the ratings really come into being a relevant indicator once you've configured the set of rules you're using. So as I mentioned, we have about 350, so it's a lot, but we provide a jump off point for each of these languages to get a starting point, which you can start to tinker with. And once you have your set of rules and you've defined that, then these high level metrics, whether it be a pass or a fail from any static analysis tool, that rule set passing on to that high level is the most value you're going to get, that configuration. That passes on, like I mentioned, to the quality gate. Up here we've got a pass, and that's a pass or fail. Now we can see at the moment is a pass, even with these E ratings that I have here, and that's because of this yellow section. Now I know I've been teasing on relevancy of the feedback for a little while, and this is the start of it. So the yellow section there is a section called the new code. And the new code section allows you to see issues created since a certain point. So what it's focusing on, and what SonarQube actually describes as cleaning as you code, is creating a standard for your development and then moving forward with that standard and enforcing it. Because we know that scanning a legacy code base 5-6 years old is going to come up with issues, especially if you haven't had static analysis the whole time you've been developing. And those issues, that's a lot of time to put into fixing these issues. Like 131 days of technical debt is being calculated by our tool right now, and that's just not approachable. So what we try and do is separate the issues that are coming into your code new, so the issues that are being put into development now, and basing our quality gate and our pass or fail on that new development. So on this page, I'm focusing on my master branch here, and this new my master branch in my GitHub. Now, realistically, that would be something like development, but we can see that since 6 months ago, since my version, a version called new feature, I've had 7 new code smells. So that means I've only let these 7 issues, so some empty methods, unused private methods, etc. These are the issues that have gone into my my development branch, or my master branch, which is not bad. So I have an A rating for my vulnerabilities and bugs because I haven't gotten any, and I've got an A rating for my code smells as well. And this is what we're basing our quality gate on. But before it even gets to that point, we want to check the pull requests. So let me just duck back to the questions here because I can see them. Flying in. So is CodeScan only compatible with SFDX, or does it work with metadata? It does work with metadata as well. If you're using a tool to pull your metadata, you can scan it. The tool will scan recursively through all the documents through all the directories, and you can get your result that way. Is it a coincidence the UI looks exactly like Sonar Cloud, or are they based on the same framework? Well spotted. So Sonar Cube is our framework that we built on top of. So Sonar Cube, for anyone who doesn't know, is a very well-known static analysis tool. They cover a lot of different languages and have been around for some time. We have built our cloud product on top of Sonar Cube, customized it a lot to provide these integrations for Salesforce and make it a bit more Salesforce focused. But yes, we do have the Sonar Cube dashboard, and when you run CodeScan locally, you would actually plug in for Sonar Cube, so it could run alongside any other languages you're using Sonar Cube for the development. But Sonar Cube is an absolutely excellent static analysis tool. They have so many different integrations and plugins and functionality that, well, to give you a reference, we used Sonar Cube and their Java plugins while we were developing CodeScan to be on the cloud to scan Salesforce code. So, excellent tool. So no, that's not a coincidence.
Hey, well, can I ask a follow-up on that question about SFDX versus kind of the classic metadata source?
Sure.
So if this is doing static analysis of code that is, in some directory somewhere, right? Whether, and I have another question later about where that's hosted, so we'll get to that afterwards. But just assume that for all intents and purposes, at some point it's basically scanning, a static directory with code in it.
Yes.
So if I'm using Salesforce DX, my options for how I store my source code are very different from the classic metadata source, package.xml style, metadata API layout, right? I could have multiple package directories, for example, which means that code in multiple places, will all operate once deployed to the org as if it's in the same org, but I've got Apex classes in package directory A that are referring to Apex classes in package directory B. Is CodeScan smart enough to know that and to still understand and validate, the various? It can still build basically a source tree to figure out what's going on, in all of those different dependencies.
CodeScan will scan across all of those different things, but static analysis it is limited in a way, so it doesn't do dynamic scanning of the code. It does dynamic scanning within the files, but as far as those relationships go between, say, two package directories, as you mentioned, it is limited there. We do have a couple rules that will scan separate files, for example, say, to find out the API version of a certain file in the metadata, or see if a class has a test class, that kind of thing. But as far as the relationship between two different files, it's quite limited. Static analysis in general.
Gotcha. Okay.
The source, so in that way, it's it's like a battering ram. So it's a little bit dumber when it comes to knowing how everything relates. It will scan every file, but it will do it for any any way the source is the directories the source is in. So you could say, if you had your SFDX pipeline and you're pulling your code with your SFDX pipeline, running your tests in a what do you call it, scratch org or anything like that, running that analysis will run through all of those directories recursively and find the files it needs to scan the same as it would pulling the code with the the metadata API and running that scan through the source directory. So yes, it can do both.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No worries. So, oh, you also asked Vivek, is the code always being scanned from a Git repository? No, it's not. So it does work with local repos as well. It takes a little bit more configuration, but any static analysis tool would. And the what do you call it? The theory is very much the same. So all you need if I was to build, say, even on GitHub Cloud, if I was to build something in Actions there, or the Actions beta on a GitHub self-hosted repository, it's really just based on making sure those analyses are kicked off in the right place. So, for example, if I know I need to do an analysis every time I run a pull request. So you've got those triggers in GitHub, you've got the triggers in Bitbucket as well, and the same triggers in GitLab. I believe every repository has a version of those triggers to kick off that analysis, whatever tool you're using in that pipeline. But that's where you'd want to do that. So can you skip the test classes? That's the one that always causes unnecessary headaches. Yes, it can very much. Yes, so I believe in every static analysis tool that I am familiar with, there are definitely some time-saving configurations and some noise reduction when it comes to those test classes, especially if your tool is checking around duplications. That can be a real headache there. But yes, I mean there's ways in our tool as well to scope the analysis to make sure that what you're seeing is relevant to the type of file, etc.
I had a question for you about this overview, this kind of high level dashboard. Is this the primary, view that a team would have of this, or are there other reports or dashboards that would be important for a team to use on a regular basis?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple different places as a port of call for a developer or a team. So as a developer and as a kind of a collaborative experience, as I was mentioning before, the first page that everyone will see is this, and they'll see the passes and fails and the various high level metrics. Then when they're going into the issues, this would be the second place. The issues can actually be assigned to people, so they can actually check how many issues they have assigned to them and be notified of that and make sure they fix them. The other place is when we're talking about new code and where it's coming from. Of course, we're talking about pull requests. So up here is a branching menu, and we can see if I click on here, I've created a branch in GitHub called brand new issues. And so if I click into this one, this would show up for any pull request that's created. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the developer has on their own branch relevant information about what's being created on that branch and scope that into what's relevant to them and what they need to fix. So for example, this branch here is a pull request, my adding some garbage pull request, number 14. And I've put in some strategically sabotaged code. And what it's done is automatically run the scan as I was mentioning before, just kicking off that scan with the creation of the pull request so we can get some visibility on it. And what it's done is created a failed build in GitHub based on that, based on this quality gate, this failure here. So the first point of call for these developers is saying, they've created their pull request, the scan runs automatically, and getting some kind of indication of that issue on where they're working, whether that is GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab or Capado or AutoRabbit. That's really what you want to see and where you want to enforce that standard. So after that, of course, for CodeScan, they can click in there and get straight to this page to start digging in to their to the issues that are occurring.
So that's interesting. What I like about having that dashboard, and kind of why I was asking about the other reports, was that in my past experience, one of the ways that I've found code analysis to be useful as a developer was in trying to justify to my managers, and then also to other product owners who are trying to drive feature development, to have some sort of data to back up my request of, hey, we need like a tuning sprint, or we need a fixing sprint. We need a sprint to take care of technical debt or code quality issues before this stuff gets out of control. And having metrics is your best friend there, I've found, because A, it gives you weight in the initial argument, and B, it can show progress. So if your manager goes to bat for you with the PMs and says, hey, we took a break, we took a one sprint break on feature development because we wanted to work on code quality, and here's the result, right? Like there's demonstrable metrics that show that we changed, that can be helpful. Are there reports that would help somebody like that, as pieces of collateral in those kind of conversations?
For sure. I think there's a couple places. So the first ports of call that I just mentioned were very developer focused, but when it comes to that kind of collateral and that kind of ROI metric, there's a couple different places. So for example, we have the activity menu here, which lets us see the scans run and where you were at over time. Obviously, there was a big drop off here, and if we don't know why, we can click on it. We can see I've made some changes in my quality profiles, and I stopped using certain quality profiles and used other ones. A quality profile being a set of rules. But over time, we can definitely see the changes in our code quality and track those issues. I
like that. I like that because having that kind of information and especially the kind of metrics over time, this is one of the key features that would allow a team to build a culture of code quality.
Exactly. And even the collaborative kind of view of seeing those bugs go down, or no new bugs being created is really cool too. I mean, I know a lot of I do a lot of calls with our customers. We try and do them quarterly, and looking into their code and being able to see with the well set up pipeline, seeing those bugs going down or at least staying constant and not going up, it's a really great thing to see, especially after a couple of years,
Yep. And I think it's important for people who who are part of organizations where you don't have this in place, and you're thinking about how you might want to implement something like this, that phrase, a culture of code quality, really is important, because look, in a world where half of us would probably come to blows with the other half just on the question of tabs versus spaces. Forget even about how many spaces a tab is supposed to be, right? That is the environment into which we as developers live, right, or operate. So anything you can do to build a culture of code quality, and anytime you can use tools to enhance that culture or support that culture, it's super critical to do that. So if you're here today and you're thinking about implementing something like this in your organization, just know that it's more than just a hard skill. I got to get the tools and configure them, and kind of problem you're solving. There's a lot of soft skills here you're going to need as well, right? There is consensus building, culture building, and you need to go into this with your eyes open, and you need to look for tools and for ways that you can help build that culture of code quality in your organization.
For sure. Yeah. Well said. That's definitely, I think that might be another place where that headwind can come as well, depending on the size and of that development team and really the type of company and what they're developing. Um, Building that culture can be something that a lot of people take a lot of pride in, setting these standards. And if everyone's brought in to review these rule sets and create that standard for your organization, that can be a really big part of it. But other people, it can be seen as something that is hindering at the start. Uh, but once that culture is actually created, then you've got a lot of one, you've got faster developers, you got developers who are confident in what they're producing, and some pride in the fact that you have this organizational standard and you're enforcing it, and you've got this standard of product that you're putting out. It's really good to see.
No, well said. And that graph, that's a key tool, because you were right. It's when you said it's neat to see that over time.
Mm.
I think you're 100% right, because this is where a lot of a team's pride would come in, like seeing that go down over time, knowing where they came from, knowing where they are, and being able to really see the details of the history. So I like that this is part of the tool set.
Mm. And I mean, this is a a Sonar Cube feature, really. The fact that all of these historical metrics are available in the tool, as well as you mentioned, Vivek, starting to uh, try and show a management team kind of a catalyst for that fixing, that taking that sprint off to start to repair some of the things or refactor some of the things that are giving you trouble. The other bits and pieces are around these sections here. So a couple graphs around the different categories of issue. So in CodeScan, in SonarCube specifically, what these graphs are showing are your remediation effort, which is a time that it is estimated to take to fix that issue. The remediation effort for the class based on the size against the size of the class. So for example, we've got a lot of our actually let me go to a less JavaScript heavy project here. And let me go to this measures one. See some of these. Okay. So there are three different categories, like I showed you before: the the bugs, the vulnerabilities, and the code smells. Now, bugs produce a reliability measure. Uh, Security is a security measure, of course, and code smells is a maintainability measure. So on these graphs here, what we can see is remediation effort to lines of code, and we can see based on the size and color of these circles here, we can see the size of the class uh, and the remediation effort. So we can see here we've got chatter email handler, which is 211 lines of code and apparently a 4-hour and 15-minute remediation effort. So that's a sore spot. As well as down here, we've got bingo controller class, 202, and a an effort of 1 hour and 5 minutes, but a security rating of D. So it's a bit darker. So we know that one there has something a bit more sinister in it, and being able to track that down. There we go. So at the moment, this is cyclomatic complexity, which I've set as a critical because I wanted to try and bring down the complexity of my classes. But the point is getting the visibility on where you need to focus in your development, and where that refactoring effort can be started is a really good thing for a tool to have.
So you're literally graphing the low-hanging fruit as if it was low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, exactly. You got your
So,
lemons and your limes, and God forbid the oranges.
yeah. Okay, so question, who determines how long a particular vulnerability would take to remediate? Is there an automated or AI-driven determination of that? Or is that something that a human has to go in and kind of see a vulnerability and say, oh, I think that's going to take an hour or 2 hours or whatever?
Yeah, so that's a measure that's come out of the tool, and that's an estimation that we provided based on feedback from quite a few developers. So we try and accurately give an amount of time that will take to remediate based on the complexity of it, based on if that that one issue would cause you to have to refactor a couple parts in the code itself. And if it does, then those get added on. Say if you have this is happening here because of this, and this, it will give you a base time and then add on some time for those other bits you need to trail. So it's an estimation, but it is as far as we're concerned, an accurate estimation on what those issues will take.
Gotcha.
So that's a Sonar Cube and CodeScan kind of metric there. But when it comes to any other tool and the kind of tools you're given to remediate these issues, another place you can get it is by the severities of issues in any tool. So, for example, maybe let's sum it up here. Yeah, so GitHub recently released some security updates. One of which was bringing on the Serif format for their repositories. So Serif stands for Static Analysis Results Interchange Format, and it's just a certain structure of JSON that allows you to pass in some static analysis results and get some inline metrics. So, for example, if I go to the security tab here in GitHub and the code scanning alerts, we can see that now GitHub can pull all of these issues, have them in a list, show you what branch they're on, and maintain that they're an error or a warning or an information spot in the code. And where that becomes most valuable, of course, is once again as far left as you can get in GitHub, which is the pull request. So being able to check on this diff exactly where these issues are happening, and some information about the issues. So I know a few tools, a few static analysis tools have jumped on board. I'm sure PMD has it. If anyone hasn't heard of PMD, they're a free tool that allows you to scan Apex code, and yes, they're very widely used especially in pipelines to gain this kind of information.
This is amazing. This is I was not aware that GitHub had opened that up as an API. So this is the first time I'm seeing this. This is nice. That means that the developers can basically interface with this information in whatever way is most natural for the flow that they're in at a given time. If you're just doing your regular work, and you're kind of in GitHub all day, every day, these code quality issues that surface there. Or if you need to do the reports, and like we were talking about previously, you've got the web-based interface.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is
And I think you said it really well. Just providing this information to the developers where they're working is important, I think. Yeah, and relevant information, of course.
So I think before you move on to the next section, there was one last question from Doshi. It's, can I have my build pipeline halt if it doesn't meet a given threshold? And then are there sample pipelines you can demo?
Yeah, for sure. No, there's a few ways to do that depending on your pipeline. So, for example, if you had an SFDX pipeline, you could base that, say, well, in SFDX pipeline, we actually have a plugin. I don't want to print that. Hold on. SFDX CodeScan plugin. So we have a plugin for SFDX that will do just that. For example, this plugin you can run by using the SFDX CodeScan run and then specifying where the analysis needs to go. So for example, my CodeScan cloud dashboard here. And what it will do is run the analysis with the rules, etc. you have configured. Then push it back to the dashboard, check those results against the quality gate, so that pass or fail condition that you've configured, and then pull that pass or fail back in. And depending on the flags, you can fail that straight away. So a lot of people do use that, especially in Jenkins. Some people use it in their deployment pipelines. That feels a little late for me because a code quality check when you're deploying that fails can be a real upset to that. So the those builds on, say, pull requests and failing that build is a good way to do it. So yes, short answer is yes. That's very, very possible and very flexible with that SFDX plugin, as SFDX is. It's the kind of thing we're trying to do with the GitHub the GitHub integration as well. So, for example, if I go back to where was it? My Lightning repository that I was at before. But it's the same thing we're trying to do with our GitHub integration in cloud as well. So this, for example, this build will show up automatically when you configure that project through CodeScan and give you that pass or fail based on the quality gate. And for example, using GitHub's branch policies. It's branch policies here. Yeah, branch protection rules. You can block that being merged based on that quality gate. The same thing with the Serif, the Serif reporting and GitHub. You can block that based on the severity of those issues that pop up in there from whatever static analysis tool, if you really want to enforce that strongly, those quality standards.
So I'm glad that you went to this branch protection page, because it makes me think of one of the challenges. If you've been developing on Salesforce for a little while now, like pre-Salesforce DX as an example, because pre-SFDX really was not easy to do this kind of branch development with Salesforce. It's much easier now if you can use Scratch orgs and you can use Salesforce DX source and all that. Getting people to transition into that world can be hard. So forget even about using static code analysis yet. If you're not, as a development team, if you're not using Git appropriately, or you're at least getting the most out of it, That's kind of a headwind right there. Do you have any advice on how a team can transform itself to use more source-based development? And it could be things like use Git and then use these branch protection rules so that no one can commit to master. So you're forced to go through the pain of everybody figuring out how to do branches and pull requests and all that. Any advice along those lines?
Look, it's hard to say because everyone has a very different needs when it comes to that, and I've seen a large spread uh, in the different approaches that people take to it. There are a couple as far as the actually blocking development based on quality of your code. There's also a couple mindsets. So, for example, we can do it without plugins. You can do it with these branch protection rules, or I believe it's merge protection in Bitbucket. There's also similar in every in most source control. But there are kind of two frames of mind. For one, SonarQube, for example, static analysis big boys, they give warnings, but they recommend not to block, uh, based on the fact that by creating that culture and creating those flags, they hope that people will take notice of them and fix those issues without it actually becoming a something that's going to slow you down. Um, a lot of people do choose to block them straight away, especially people who are using uh, a static analysis tool to check development that's been outsourced. So if they're worried about the quality of development that's coming back in from a partner or from an SI, they can. A lot of people use it to block that, but they don't want to slow that development down. They want to track it. So there's definitely two minds there about visibility versus uh, I guess accountability. Maybe that's the wrong word, but visibility versus enforcing to the point of blocking on those standards.
Well, I think it goes to the point of cultural evolution. Is
Mm.
you need to adopt the culture, and you need to create the gamification and the incentives to adopt the culture. And by exposing those uh, elements, you can encourage people more gently than just saying, go fix it and get back to me when you're done. So it's a little more of a nudge.
Yeah, good point, Jim. I think that's really good. Um, there is also actually a feature that is actually a SonarQube feature that allows these issues to be tracked by the person that created them. So for example, a if you're using Git development, if you're using Git flow, it will actually take that Git information and attach the lines to you that you created with your account. So using that, it can also be um, a bit more of a nudge as well. If you've created 50 lines in this class and you've got your name on all of them, you want them to be clean, right? You don't want that coming back with the issues. So it's definitely creating that visibility can be go a long way to promoting that culture, Jim. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. But yeah, I think back to static analysis as a whole. I know I've talked a lot about CodeScan because that's where I'm more of an expert, but these pipelines, they can really be I think they're really important. And I was I was kind of mentored by my CTO who never went into development without logging and monitoring of production and static code analysis while he's developing. he has a really strong belief in the fact that these quality rules do make development faster. They make it much easier and more enjoyable to develop. So you're not worrying about these issues coming up in testing. You're not worried about them coming up in QA. You can have more time to actually focus on business logic and the things that really matter and the things that kind of got us all into development in the first place. It's cool making something work, right? If you can think about something and make it work, that's a lot of fun. When someone's yelling at you because it broke, it's not as fun. But the fact is that there are a lot of tools out there, and there's a good tool for everybody. I mean, PMD is a great little tool. It's free. It's great if you're kind of developing on your own, or you're an independent contractor, Jim, with some Capado stuff up their sleeves. You want to have a pipeline that's going to work for someone. Sorry, second.
I just said Capado. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. But building something with some visibility in it is, I think, really important for any level of development. And there's always a tool for every level. But yeah, they're out there. They're easy to get your hands on, and the information on how to do that best is out there as well. But hopefully I gave you some insight into how we think about it and how we feel is the best way that push left the creation of a culture of code standardization and how a team views code, and as well as giving a developer a bit more input into the testing process, and a bit more responsibility when it comes to creating that code.
Yeah, this has been fantastic, Will, and I appreciate how your demo of CodeScan, while obviously specific to CodeScan, this lets us visualize this otherwise very abstract, concept of static development and and where this would fit into a development pipeline. So this has helped me actually, just looking at all of this work, because these are things that I've been thinking about in the context of partners recently. So I've really appreciated this demo.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope I didn't bore anyone. I hope you guys found it useful. But there are a couple of ways to get in touch with me. If you have any more questions, if you want to try out CodeScan, we have a trial. If you want to plug it into your repository or into your org, feel free to jump on and have a shot. Let's see here. There we go. We just mute my CEO here for a second. So he just told me the Slack deal. I'm not sure who was talking about it before, but the Slack deal went through with Salesforce.
Yeah,
7 billion.
I just found out about that today myself.
Yeah. Wow. I'm looking forward to seeing how that ties in. Looking forward to seeing how that progresses.
Me too. Very excited. Very excited.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for the presentation. I jumped in a bit late. Are you going to send out a recording?
Yes, I believe Vivek is recording it. Is that right?
Yep, we are recording this, and we'll, I'm grateful to have Will here. And I don't know, Will, if you want to, if you need to drop, that's fine. But if you want to stay and just keep that slide up while we discuss things, that way you can kind of keep your information up in front of everybody. I'm happy to have that. But yeah, the recording will be made available. We have some more time, in our technical knowledge share session, and I was hoping that we could, follow up Will's presentation with a focused discussion. Obviously, if people have questions, Will, if you still have time, if you can answer them, that'd be fantastic. But I'm curious to hear from other members in the group, what has your experience been like when it comes to implementing DevOps with Salesforce? Because it has been a very rapidly evolving landscape over the past few years. And your experience is probably different if you worked with other platforms and then came to Salesforce versus, you've kind of grown up as a developer inside of the Salesforce ecosystem. So we'd just love to hear, the perspectives and experiences of other folks on the call.
I'm trying to implement this right now, like a DevOps process. Maybe initially without static code analysis, but then adding that in, or maybe an opportunity to do it right off the bat. But I'm working for a Salesforce customer, have got all the developers using source control now, looking to take the next steps in the maturity journey. So this is extremely helpful, and thank you, Will, for showing us.
James, if you don't mind, what have some of the headwinds been as you've tried to convert this team over to source-driven development?
We've got a lot of career Salesforce developers who just aren't familiar with modern DevOps, really. I'm having to every week have meetings where I demo things, and just trying to teach and educate has honestly been the biggest challenge for me, and to be able to consistently dedicate time to that with a million other balls in the air.
When you say, James, career Salesforce developers, are they hardcore Apex coders, heads down? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that, as opposed to somebody who's transitioned from being a developer on another stack.
So some bad habits.
Yeah, or just lack of experience with source control or DevOps.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because there's another constituency that could fall into that same camp, and that could be the kind of the pure app builder, declarative developers, right?
Yeah.
Where touching a command line or VS Code is just simply not part of their flow at all.
Not part of their world. Yeah.
Right. Let me give the safe harbor. So I work for Salesforce. I'm here on my own. I'm my own person, but also anything I say, please remember Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Don't make any decisions, purchasing or development, on what I may say right now. Make them on what's generally available. Having said that, one of the things that is coming is the DevOps Center, and it is basically a way for declarative developers and admins to participate in source-driven development workflows without having to touch a command line or really understand Git or the intricacies of a VCS. And it's done through a UI inside of an org where changes can kind of be, you can almost build a change list in an org, and then that gets committed to Git through an API-based authorization. So the user would have to have an account with GitHub, and would have to have permissions on a repo, but then a lot of the work of getting a commit in on a particular branch would be done kind of done for them. So there is help coming for.
Vivek, I can show you that in production right now.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I don't want to steal the thunder.
No, steal away.
Well, so for me, and I've always been critical, obviously, of kind of the way Salesforce sells. I was obviously a proprietor of that for many years. And, if I look at the way Salesforce sells versus the way things should be done, you have a very divergent approach. I come from classic development background and, big, heavy IT, sort of Oracle, SAP kind of, heavy heavy rigor, heavy CI/CD, and Salesforce was always like, oh, you know, we'll just go develop in a sandbox and we'll put it in production. And I mean, you know, work.com is probably the best example of that. Oh, don't mess around with trying to implement this in your production org. Just spool up a new org. And one of the things that I've always thought is that Salesforce has this incredible opportunity to be the single platform, but single platform shouldn't have 26 orgs in a platform. It should have one because of all the benefits of one. So it's really interesting to me that there's a big divergence between what rigor and what best practices should be implemented in running a Salesforce org versus what gets you to be a huge darling on Wall Street.
So Rob, let me push back a little bit as a technical architect, because there could be very valid reasons to have multiple orgs. So
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying no, and I agree with you. There's a lot of good technical reasons, but what always frustrates me is there's never any sort of oversight or insight into or governance into how traditional Salesforce orgs are actually implemented. And so, 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 years down the line, you wind up with all kinds of problems. And maybe this is the right time to have this discussion, or maybe it isn't. It's just when we have somebody like Will here who's talking about best practices, and I've been part of the strategic architectural team that went in and basically drove big sales up, big customers. There's a bit of a divergence. So I think there's an opportunity to bring those two things back together. And I think when you look at tools like Will's, tools like Capado, tools like mine, I think or tools like even Kimberly with Own, there's some best practices that sort of get left out. That's all I'm saying.
no, I definitely agree. And I think that one of the things that's good to keep in mind is that with advancements in our tooling, like with Salesforce DX, Salesforce has focused on building out the primitives, right? Trying to sharpen the building blocks of a source-driven, application platform, while leaving the implementation up to the customer, right? And so the better that we can build the building blocks, the better that tools from partners like CodeScan or Capado or AutoRabbit, or there's a number of great DevOps partners right now. So tools that they build, or tools that an organization might decide to roll on their own. That if we can do a good job on building the building blocks, then you can assemble those building blocks, to build the agile, DevOps nirvana that works best for your organization. The downside of that is that by definition, batteries are not included, right? You've got to build something.
Yeah.
And I understand where you're coming from when you say maybe how it's sold versus how it is.
Well, I think, Vivek, there's guys like you that are very thoughtful and prescriptive, and there's guys like me that are chasing a quota. And I'll be the first to tell you that, my tenure at Salesforce was all about making $1 million a year. And if I can sidestep anything that gets between me and quota, I will. And, I think, again, if you're beholden to Wall Street and you're beholden to growth after growth after growth, quarter after quarter after quarter, it's great to have these discussions in a frank and safe place like this. But, I'm on the phone every day with global account managers for the biggest Salesforce customers, and the last thing that they want to do is put any kind of process or rigor in place because it precludes getting to quota. And a lot of those people won't be here a year from now. A lot of them will be at AWS. They'll be at Google. But, you know, the last thing in the world that they want to do is go into a client like, I don't know, British Petroleum or Amazon Web Services and talk to them about the right way to roll Salesforce out.
Right. And so I think so Rob's comments, you know, for everyone listening, this is maybe a great reminder that it is up to all of us to insist at the level that we can, to insist on process, to insist
And rigor.
and insist on governance, right? Like that G word. That's the one. If you
I would call it insight for oversight, but yeah, governance is another way to say it.
Right, because what's great about the word governance is that's the word that C-level will sign extra checks for, right? So and what's important about this conversation, I'm glad Robbie brought this up, is because, you know, while this might not be part of your discussions right now, you know, those of you on the call listening, let's hope that as your career progresses, that you will be in the room where these decisions are made, or where they're talked about it, or where, you know, a fact-finding mission happens. And so terms like governance are really important to remember, because that's a key word from an architect's point of view. And everything that Rob is talking about boils down to governance. And governance is something that you've got kind of one shot to do it cheaply, or as cheap as it possible, right? And that's at the start, because you can always do it later, but Lordy, is it going to cost more? It's going to cost more money, or it's going to cost more time, or it's going to cost more relationship points, you know, with your developers or with your admins or whoever you have to suddenly say, hey, folks, I know you've been doing something this one way for the last 2 years, and now you're going to do it a different way. And it doesn't matter how crazy the way you were doing it was. The fact that we're telling you to do something new is going to be met with knee-jerk, friction, right? And so think about that. You know, everybody on the call, you know, what sort of governance would you put into place, you know, as a software architect, as a developer, you know, as a DevOps person, and this whole concept of DevOps, you know, definitely start building an extra hat to put on, right? Build a DevOps mindset. You know, don't just think, how would I write this Apex class? At some point, you know, maybe that's all you can figure out at the time, and that's okay. But at some point, you're going to have to say, okay, well, now that I've built my Apex class, how do I get this, you know, slotted in with a bunch of other people's changes, right? How do I do that efficiently? How do I do that regularly? And so, you know, I know James, to your question or your comments about, you know, the transition that you guys are going through right now. I liked in Will's demo you know, some of those graphs, because maybe that's something, if you implement early, you have instant candy to like give people. Like, hey, you know, I know it was hard what we asked you to do, but look, like that line, that's you guys, you know, or you all. So anyways, good stuff. Thanks, Rob, for those comments. Good discussion. Anybody else want to kind of talk about, you know, what's going on in their organization, DevOps in general, or you have questions for Will?
I have questions for Will, but I don't want to monopolize.
You spoke first, so go.
So just in terms of like procedurally, how you would adopt a tool like CodeScan. I'm thinking step one would be each developer can just install the plugin in VS Code to get it for themselves personally. And then I guess the next step would be, you mentioned an app exchange package. Is that something you need to install in your like production org in order to log into the portal that has the dashboards, or would you set it up from GitHub next, or what would be the next step?
It really depends on the structure of the team. So we have people that will actually get CodeScan first, install it into their into their org or into their sorry, not install it into their org first. CodeScan's a third-party tool, so it's always running separately to Salesforce, and the code either goes back and forth from the Salesforce platform or from a source control. So we have a lot of people that will implement it in their DevOps pipelines, their CI/CD pipelines, to get that feedback where they need to, and then introduce their team to it while they still haven't enforced any passes or fails. They introduce everyone to it and start to introduce them to the metrics and what's being shown, etc. Get everyone onto the platform, and then roll out the IDEs. Then we've got some people that it's a very collaborative experience from the very start. So, for example, one of our partners, PulseSource, who is an SI in Europe, they had a lot of meetings straight away as a team to review the rule sets and roll it out to everyone all together at the same time. So everyone was learning about the product at the same time. Everyone was learning about static analysis, really what they wanted to find, and define those standards as a team, and then started bringing it on to their customers. I know that's a little bit different since they were using it as a company for their customers, but I think it was a really great approach, because reviewing that rule set as a team and just so everyone has a part in that is a really important part of the process, and something a lot of people bypass. Something I try to promote is definitely building those standards together. So yeah, to answer your question, the Visual Studio Code plugins are something that quite often gets rolled out after the pipeline to kind of gently introduce all the developers to it. First they can see it on their pipeline, little flag, and they can check it out, and then it's a full-on assault in their IDE from the very start. So yeah.
Hey, Will, quick follow-up about that, because I didn't realize that there was like a VS Code integration. So does it utilize the exact same rule sets, or so as an organization they only have to define the rules once, and the extensions are smart enough to kind of go to where the rules are defined?
Yeah, exactly. Let me just line it up here for you, and I can bring it over onto my screen. But
That's really cool.
the recent, there we go. So yes, so the quality profiles that first defining those standards, exactly. We only want that to be done once. So what it does is connect to the CodeScan server, whether that's SonarQube running locally or CodeScan Cloud, and to a project, so you can leverage those profiles that have already been configured. So for example, oh, that's garbage. That's garbage too. Okay, how about this one? Give it a couple seconds. There we go. So what it does is run a scan just on each file as you open it, and as you make changes as well, to start to give you some feedback. So I know that these two rules here, if I hover over this line, see permissions should be checked before accessing the beer custom resource there. And if I click on the line here and on the little VS Code light bulb, we can open the description of it as well. So we've had a lot of feedback with these kind of features. Teams with developers, new developers or junior developers, that really found a lot of improvement from people who were still learning the ins and outs and these kind of Salesforce specific issues that come up, like field level security vulnerabilities, or sockle in loops or without limits that can really cause problems down the line if they're looked over. And get this feedback and a bit of an educational element right up front as well.
So this is fantastic, because this is especially important for ISV developers, because you would fail security review if this was a vulnerability in your code. Where is this? How is this rule initially defined? Is there a default set of rules that comes with the CodeScan product, or is it just mainly the engine and you've got to come up with everything by yourself? Like what's the process usually like if you're a new Salesforce team and you're building out your rule set for the first time?
Yeah, sure. So those 350 rules, they come out of the box, and they're separated by language into quality profiles. So let me just go in here. So we can see we've got a lot of, as you can see, the SonarWay profiles here. So there are some trusted plugins for Go and Java, etc. For SonarQube, which we've got on the platform as well. But we've got Salesforce Lightning profile for JavaScript. So that's our built-in Lightning JavaScript profile. We've got two Apex profiles, a strict way and a CodeScan way. Strict way is kind of a much more code quality, granular profile, and CodeScan way is more a recommended minimum. Then we've got a Salesforce metadata rule set, which is still in beta currently, but kind of tracks your profiles, objects, settings, and sharing rules. And then we've got the Visualforce and Aura Lightning, a couple of profiles there too. So what these profiles are, they come out of the box. By default, you'll have some selected. You can run that first scan and start digging through the issues straight away. But what we always recommend with that, as I mentioned, the customizing of the profile, is actually copying one of ours and starting to mess with it. So removing rules, changing the thresholds of those rules, that's all available to do in your custom profile. And that's what makes it really relevant to your organization's standards.
See, and that's a pretty convenient way of looking through the rules. Like I like that it's well organized, because I've tried to implement PMD, and it's definitely a heavier lift. So I do like how collaborative this kind of web-based UI makes everything.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a lot easier to start digging into what's going on in your code. So like I mentioned before, that first scan of that legacy code base is you're going to go, oh my God, I've got a burning dumpster for an org and I need to fix all of this stuff. But what you can really start doing once you've scanned with a default rule set is start to dig in and find what is actually relevant. So for example, 759 code smells, right? That's a lot of issues. But if we dig in and we start looking, per language and then per rule, and we can see that 199 of these are unused variables, right? That's a pretty easy fix, but something you can start looking into. And if you're looking at customizing your rule sets, what you can do is if we grab all of the different types of issues here and we separate it by the languages, then we can start to see what are the most common issues in that language, what's causing the most noise, what maybe could be tweaked, what could maybe be added, what could be removed, and start figuring out that way from a baseline of rules and things that you're looking for, and then customizing from there. So you're not just thrown into the deep end, you have to build it from scratch. we help you get it up to speed with a good jump off point, and then building something really custom that applies to you.
I like that strategy of starting by running it against your code with the most restrictive sets of rules, because that can give you a starting point on either relaxing things or changing the severity or whatnot, because you've got at least your starting point of data set in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's really good to, do all you can and then pare it down a bit. Actually, SonarQube has a really good blog if anyone's interested in learning a bit more about static analysis and kind of the theory behind it. SonarQube has a really good blog, and they released something the other day about false positives in static analysis and the signal to noise ratio, and how false positives can actually be useful sometimes, because that people are saying, oh, that's a false positive, why is it coming up with that, and looking into something. So static analysis is really a good jump off point and can streamline a lot of your review. You're not looking through lines and lines of code manually and spending that time. And I know someone in the chat was mentioning that those manual reviews take a lot of time. It's taking a lot of time off the top of that, but also allowing you to much more quickly jump into the issues which the code is finding, and start to have a more structured way to dig into it and determine if something's a false positive, to determine if you're going to fix it or not, and to have it just pinpoint those real pain areas in your code without having to dig for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, hey folks, there are 17 minutes left. So if anyone has any other questions for Will, this is the time to ask them. And James, that you are also included, even though.
if you feel bad about talking out, James, feel free to reach out to me. There's the support email there. You'll get me, and we can have a bit of chat. Actually, speaking one more thing that I'll speak on actually
Please.
is the on that getting your eyes on things. One feature that SonarQube introduced and that we continued with the Salesforce stuff is the security hotspots. And security hotspots are not necessarily hard and fast areas, but they're areas of the code that could be security sensitive, like the deserialization of data or creating cookies. And they don't show up as a code smell of vulnerability of a bug. They show up in these security reports. So by tagging vulnerabilities or these hotspots with CWE errors. So for those who don't know, CWE stands for the Common Weakness Enumeration, and it is a list of common security issues in all development, in software development. And what OWASP and SANS do, they're two security organizations, they have compiled these top 10 and top 25 lists of the most common or the most severe issues that appear in everyday development. And so what you can do with this feature is really see, based on these categories, where your code is doing well and where it's maybe failing a little bit. The other part of that is pointing out these security hotspots, which allow you to pinpoint the code, to see where it's happening and get some human eyes on it, and actually review that piece of code to make sure it's okay, and then either detect it as an issue or clear it. Say, no, that code's safe. We can let that go. So not only we're not trying to replace human eyes, because there's nothing better than someone actually going through and figuring it out a lot of the time, especially with something like this, deserializing or creating cookies, etc. Because the tool can't figure out context like a human can. it is helping with that review process, automating what it can, and allowing you to kind of get a head start on what you can't.
So, Rick actually asked an interesting question. I don't know if you know the answer. I'm trying to figure out the answer as well. But he was asking, what is the issue with deserialization of data from an untrusted source? And I mean, I guess my issue would be, from a security point of view, is if you're just deserializing data and treating it as if it is a valid object, and the source is not trusted, then somebody could be injecting something unexpected into that. Now, whether or not that ends up, directly being exploitable, or it's the first step to a multi-stage exploit, I don't know. But
that's exactly it. And so you've got in these rules on CodeScan, at least, you've got a couple of links to the documentation as well. So, for example, here's the common weakness enumeration documentation about it, and some background details, the different modes of the introduction of the issue, and really in-depth view of what can happen and how these vulnerabilities can be attacked, can be what do you call it, leveraged to create.
So, Will, this is the first time I had heard of the CWE, which is funny because the OWASP top 10 is basically built on this. I don't know why I never took it one level deeper to know that this existed.
Yeah.
But this is fantastic. I just knowing that this is out there, and when I didn't know that before, is amazing. So thank you for highlighting this.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's a really interesting list. If anyone's interested, it's really cool to dig into the top 25 or the top 10 and really learn a bit more about these issues and how they can be exploited. But the thing with vulnerabilities as well that you have to think about is, the effort taken to repair a vulnerability is it's only valuable up to the point that it's more effort to exploit than what you're actually getting out of it as well. So there's a balance there too, especially when you're building, well, outside of Salesforce especially. I mean, Salesforce has a lot of security safeguards, but yeah, it's a really interesting list, a really interesting site, and a lot of insight into those issues and how they can be exploited.
Yeah, and what's important is that if you are a customer or you're a consultant working for a company and they're kind of building on their own org, these are important to fix, but no one's forcing you to. If you are an ISV partner, you have to make sure that your code is vulnerability free, or else our security team will surface them in the security review process, and and your submission will fail. And so tools like CodeScan that provide this continual ongoing reminders of how your code is doing from these perspectives are just critical, because it's one thing to fix a vulnerability when you're a developer and you've hit save, and run the scanning tools locally in VS Code, and you're like, oh, whoops, there's a couple of things I missed, let me fix that. Versus it's the end of the sprint and everybody is screaming to get their pull requests accepted, and there's hundreds of vulnerabilities that have to be addressed first, right? And you definitely don't want to be trying to tackle it at that point, because too often I've seen these are the kind of things that, like, well, look, we'll just fix it in the next sprint. Let's just move on. And then that is technical debt, and technical debt in any platform is painful. Technical debt on Salesforce is horrendously painful when it builds up too much. So No, I'm very glad, Rick, thanks for kind of asking that question, because it took us on a nice walk here with CWE and OWASP. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Can you put in the chat the URL of that CWE website? I went to it, but I couldn't find this particular page.
Sure. So this is the start here. Check
Thank
that
you.
in the chat. Oh, Vivek's got. There you go. Yeah. So. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, folks, time for maybe one last question. Oh, sorry, I think it was you know what? Rob asked me a question. He sent it privately, but I'll kind of share it with the group. Should we do a section on technical debt in Salesforce.com orgs and how to address? I think that's a great idea, Rob. I'll talk with Tyler. That's not bad.
It's a good suggestion. Who's the expert?
I don't know. I think
I don't know. I think between me and Rick, we've got some ideas. I think there's a couple of other folks I've met along my journey. Group out of San Francisco at DocuSign there's a couple of guys at Traction on Demand out of Canada too who have some ideas on it.
Cool. I'll definitely chat with Tyler about that.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Sorry to
I've got an idea for a consulting firm.
No, that's a good idea. Sorry, I just wanted, because we're almost out of time, I wanted to make sure if anybody had a final question for Will, that you get that out. Lee?
Hey guys, Nick Onjia. No question, but just a comment. I'm just dialing in from Sydney, so thanks to kind of COVID that this was possible. I just randomly saw the post of this discussion happening and just tuned in, and it was really helpful, really insightful. Thanks for this.
Well, we'll post a recording and you can check it out from the start.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for jumping in, Nick.
If no one else has a question, I'll ask one. If second generation packaging, like and actually ISVs in general, is there a specific ISV set of rules that comes out of the box, or is that something that have you worked with ISVs who are building for the App Exchange, and how do they customize CodeScan?
Yeah, sure. So we try and make our base collections of rules quite security strong. Security is definitely a focus, but the same rules are available for everyone. We want to create a strong profile for everyone. So if you see let me go back here. If you see here in the CodeScan way, there are only 3 of these rules that are inactive right now, which are a bit more in-depth, kind of granular rules that a lot of people like to leave out. But the ones that are actually active in this profile are the big ones that you really are really necessary in Salesforce for a secure product. So for example, using random encryption keys, don't use hard-coded credentials, hard-coded IPs, safe referrer headers, all of those kind of things. So we don't have a specific ISV profile, but we do try and give a very secure profile as a jump-off point.
All right. With that, I just want to thank you, Will. This was spectacular. I know you stayed quite a bit after to help answer questions and be part of the discussion. Really appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who participated in the discussion as well. you know, typically, as a reminder for anyone who's new to this call, our TKS, our technical knowledge share, kind of the intent of these sessions is to have discussions, is to, you know, share our technical knowledge. And, you know, we're thrilled that we had Will bringing the content today. So thank you so much for that, Will. But on a normal basis, we do these meetings every 2 weeks, pretty much, you know, without fail. And we, you know, we source the content from you. So, you know, we have everybody, you know, come with their questions and their frustrations and the things that they're doing that are really cool. And we use those to drive discussions, and we usually, you know, end up 2 hours later not knowing where the time went. So I would encourage anyone who if this is the first time on your call, definitely come back. Or if you're finding this recording and have found this content interesting, you know, come back to this to our biweekly meetups, and, you know, and ask questions and contribute, because you know, this community of this Salesforce community is really one of the special things, you know, about this ecosystem. And you know, definitely appreciate everybody here for their contributions. So thank you so much. Well, thank you a million. Just fantastic. And you know, hopefully, if anyone has questions about CodeScan, there's Will's information up there. You know, reach out, and you know, we'll see you at the next meetup.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
very
Yeah,
much.
I'll be back. Yeah, it seems like you got a great group of people and a really diverse, coming from all angles to the Salesforce platform. So I'm going to show up next time. I'm really interested to see how it goes. But
That's awesome. And because you are in San Diego,
Yeah.
whenever we once again
Whenever
have
we do.
meetups, you know, it'll be great to see you. And this really is a special group. Like, it's I haven't been to a meetup for a while, so just seeing some of these faces, you know, reminds me of how much I like these folks that show up, you know, meeting after meeting. And so definitely happy to count you in as part of that group, Will. So thank you so much.
sounds good. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Be safe.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Will.